Hi guys, it's Sophie. So I'm going to be doing a book haul for you today. I've gathered books over the last few weeks, and I have had various times where I thought, oh, do I want another book? And my brain has told me yes, and so I have accumulated books. They are little books. They aren't massive novels, so it isn't something that's like, oh bugger, I've screwed up my entire TBR. But I think they're fun and I'm really excited. They're very different. I'm interested to sort of read them knowing how different they are. So I think we'll start with the novels because that tends to be what I read, and we'll get the ordinary stuff out of the way first. So the first one I have is Green Girl by Kate Bruno. I recently finished Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay, and one of the essays seems to be based around sort of this book and her reading of this book. And luckily I managed to pick this one up pretty much at the same time as I bought Bad Feminist. So I'm probably might move on to this one soon. I know very little about it other than the cover is blooming stunning, and that it sort of focuses around women, the use of women, and sort of beauty and abuse and how those things match up. But there's no description, you just get a quote, and you don't get any nice summaries, you just have more quotes in the back, and there's a readers group in the back. So I'm really new to this. I picked it up on the bookshop having seen the cover and gone, gosh, that's incredible, and read the first 2 chapters because they're really short, and was just so intrigued I didn't want to stop reading it. So I bought this one and really excited to see how this one goes actually. I hope I enjoy it. And then the next one I have is Virginia Woolf's The Waves. Again, such a pretty book. I got this one second hand in a little place in Bristol that was really cool. I look at the paint, I love it. They had, I think it was To the Lighthouse in there as well in the same edition. I very nearly got both, but they were a tenner each, which is quite a lot for used books. I didn't want to get too much at once. But if I do enjoy it, then I will be scouring the internet for matching ones. So yeah, so I've never read a Virginia Woolf before, and I know how many people love her. I know how many people rave about her and say how she's sort of one of their literary goddesses. And that makes me a bit nervous, I'm not going to lie. I get nervous sometimes when I know that lots of people like something and I've not tried it before, because I worry, like, well, what if I don't like it? And I think that's one of the things that kept me away from Virginia Woolf for a while. But I think it's time. I think it's time to pick up the first one. And I'd really like to read A Room of One's Own, but I know that's non-fiction, and it's sort of about the woman's right to have a place to herself and what that means, to be given a space in which you can exist, essentially. But I think it would be useful to read some of her fiction first, so I have an idea of what her writing is, and sort of the context in which she's writing that particular essay slash non-fiction. So let's start here and we'll see how it goes. But it's gorgeous, and if I can find all the other ones in nice paintbrush covers, then I will. Okay, so next I have a collection of short stories called The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. Never heard of this one before, never heard of the collection, never heard of the author. But when I see short story collections for, you know, relatively cheap, I will just pick them up. I think it's a great way to explore that particular author, and to see about their writing style and just get you really excited about them. They're also really short, and it always really intrigues me when you see like really short stories. So like that, or again like the next one over, like that one page there and that little bit up there. I think it's so fun. I think you have to be quite skilled to be able to make short stories that short and make them have some meaning in them. And it just seemed intriguing. I think it seems fun. I never heard anyone talk about it, never heard of it before, but we'll see how it goes. It's very little, as I say, lots of them are going to be very little, so it's probably going to be an afternoon reading session, I think. And the next one I have is a really odd one. It's called Ultraviolet Catastrophe by Helen Kidd. And I had been looking for this book for quite a while. When I was younger I used to write quite a lot of poetry. I still write some poetry now, but a lot less. And I used to share it with my English class, share it with my English teacher. And he sort of said to me, look, right, it doesn't make any sort of sense, and it's not really poetry, but what it is it's exactly the same as this. And I was like, okay. So I tried to find this book to be like, well, what am I writing? And it didn't exist, and then it's sitting there on the like pay what you will section. and I picked it up and I started reading it, and I know exactly what my teacher meant. It's exactly the kind of things I would write. I have no idea what she's talking about. And look at the thing on the front with the like squished fox. Like, it just, none of it makes sense. But it, somehow I get it. Like I'm like, oh, I know what you're doing. It's really nice. And the style is really similar, I think, if it can be called a style, to the kind of poems that I used to write a lot of, which is great fun. So I'm slowly going through these, and it's ugly. I know it's ugly, and I know it's also falling apart. But I'm just so happy to have found it. I never thought I'd find this book. I thought he was lying. I thought he'd made it up, but apparently not. Sorry. And the next one I have is a bit more of a sensible poetry collection. It's Farrel by Jeanette McAdams. I've heard a fair few people talk about this one. I think Jen Campbell mentioned it first, or I saw that first. And it's a collection of poems about wild children, about the woods, that sort of wilderness and the outside, essentially. Also a little bit kind of others, like, if that makes sense. So like the other, like, what is that thing over there? I don't necessarily understand it. What does that mean? It's great fun. I'm about halfway through the collection at the moment. Word of advice, it is one that you probably want to have internet on hand with you for. They aren't necessarily immediately accessible, because each poem relates to a sort of event or a sort of story. It's really useful to be able to read factually what she's talking about and then read the poem sort of alongside that. I've really enjoyed doing that. It's been an awfully long time since I've sat down with like a Wikipedia page in one hand and a book in another and piece my way through something. So I'm really enjoying doing that, and I'm making sort of little notes as well as I go along, which is fun. Probably finish this one off tonight. I think it's exciting. It's fun. Recommend this one. The next one I have is poetry too, but it's a little bit different. It's Virgil, his eclogues and Georgics. I did classics at school, I did Latin at school, and I did Virgil at school. I did the Aeneid in Latin and in classics, and I spent a lot of my childhood years translating Virgil. It's very pretty. It was always very pretty, but it was not my cup of tea. But I figured, do you know what, I'm going to cheat. If I can buy it in English and I can read it in English, maybe I'll just be like, yes, this is pretty, and not have to be like, I have to translate for 4 hours to read anything. So I thought I'd give Virgil another go, and I've heard Virgil's quite a nice way to get into the proper classic, if that makes sense. Classics rather than the classics. So I thought I would pick this one up. So I really like the edition actually. When I sort of saw it online, I was like, but it's really pretty. It's really nicely done, and just really nicely put together. Yeah, Oxford World Classics, if anyone is interested. So yeah, the eclogues, which are the ones I was kind of more interested in. I don't really know that much about the Georgics, but they seem to come together. They are longer form poems about sort of odd events that occurred, and there's one particularly in the eclogues that's considered to be, I think it's the first instance where a wolfman or a werewolf is ever found in literature, and I thought that sounded interesting. Interesting enough that I was like, yes, do you know what, I'm going to sit down and actually read them. So quite excited for these, and excited to do the same thing I've been doing with Farrel, in that I'll need to refer to things and look things up and have a bit more activity in my reading, if that makes sense. So yay. Okay, so just 2 more left. So I said I've been reading Bad Feminist, and I've had a little bit of a kick at the moment. It happens to me about once every year, in that I will sit down and for some reason something inside me goes, no, screw it, I want to read all the feminist books, and I will probably be slightly obnoxious for about a month, because I'll be so full of like all of these essays and all of these ideas, and you have to chill a little bit afterwards and just say, okay, you can think these things, but you don't necessarily have to lecture everyone. But I read Bad Feminist, and I ordered another couple books at the same time, and the first one is Men Explain Things to Me by Rebecca Solnit. I've seen this one in a fair few places actually, on YouTube and in bookshops. It's a really pretty edition, and it was, I think it's quite a new release. I think it was 2014, so that explains why it's sort of kicking around so much. But they're a collection of their short essays on feminism, and just seemed really interesting. I've heard really good things about them, but I have tried really hard not to spoil myself. When you've got a book that's so little, and they are essay topics, I would much rather go in blind and see what she has to say and what she's trying to talk about than I would know that there are going to be essays on specific things. So interested for this one, and I will certainly let you know how it goes when I have a read. And the final one is the smallest one, and it's so cute. It's so cute. It's so cute. It's such a pretty little book as well. Like, just, yeah, I love it. And it's We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Sorry if I pronounced it wrong, I tried my best. I've been sitting here before this video going, I don't think that's right, but I do try. Please let me know down below if there is a proper way to pronounce her name so that I'm not screwing it up if I mention this book again. But for now that'll do. And this is similarly, I believe it's just one essay by her, and I just think she seems like a really interesting person. I think she did a TED talk about the one story, I think that was her, and I found that really interesting. It may not have been her, I'm pretty sure it was though. Regardless, I've heard this is sort of highly regarded as an essay, and it was one that just sort of seemed, it's a nice one. It's a good, for me this will be a good pocket one. If I'm going to the doctors or if I have to go wait somewhere, do something slightly boring, I can probably sit down and read this. It's like, what, 70 pages? Even less, 48 pages. So yeah, this will be one that I can read in a line, in a train, in a doctor's office, and then hopefully really enjoy. So it's an 8-book book haul, but it's so small. It's this big. So yeah, they're all really tiny little books, these ones especially, which is really different for me. I often read quite chunky, big fat novels and get stuck into those worlds, and I just fancied having something a little bit, I don't know, a little more dynamic, a little bit more picking it up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down. I've had a pretty bad reading month, to be honest. I just haven't read as much as I thought I would do, and I've sort of got a bit stuck, and even with the little ones I'm still getting a little bit stuck. So I think it just might be nice. It might be nice to have things to jump in and out of and just chill myself down a bit, because I know I get so into reading and then I just need to take a break. There's other things in my life. But yeah, so really excited to read all of those. I haven't heard of a lot of them, so it's fun sort of exploring it for myself a little bit more too. If you have read any of them and you enjoyed them, by all means let me know. If you have never heard of some of them and you're interested, let me know too, so we can chat and get excited about things we don't know about. Sorry it's been such a long time since I saw you guys and filmed a video. As I say, I'm trying a little bit to balance my life at the moment, so that's why there's been a little bit less, but I will keep uploading. I'm not disappearing, it just might be a little bit less. Alright, thank you ever so much for watching. Bye bye.